Welcome to KACE Cloud Mobile Device Manager. In this video, I'll walk you through the steps of setting up an identity provider protocol using SAML and ADFS for single sign-on. There are three prerequisites: your server host, which requires Microsoft Windows Server 2012 or above with ADFS installed, your DNS setup, and an active KACE Cloud MDM subscription. To get started, open both KACE Cloud MDM and your ADFS Windows Server. Then in KACE Cloud MDM, select the Settings tab in top navigation. Choose Single Sign-On in left navigation, and then click SAML. A quick note before we kick off: as advised at the top of the wizard here, you may want to open our SSO documentation in case you'd like to refer to it during setup. There are some copy-paste opportunities that could save you some time. Our goal here is to import the configuration URL from our identity provider. To do this, we need to construct a new URL that will point to the location of the Federation metadata XML document on our ADFS server. We'll start here at step 2 and import from URL. To construct the new URL, add your server address. This is mine for the example. And I'll combine that with this Federation metadata URL that I copied directly from our documentation, and then click Import. Note that before you import, you can test this new URL by adding it to your address bar. It's successful if the XML document downloads for you, which ours did here. I'll just open it. There we go. So now I'll click Import, and once imported, the majority of information will be populated in the SSO Configuration Wizard. Now we can update SAML settings in the SSO Wizard. We need to ensure that the logout URL is the same as the sign-on URL. Looks like it did pre-populate here. The address can also be found in the metadata XML document that we downloaded. So check any of these options, then we can enable signature fields. They're hidden until the Send Signed Requests box is checked. Here they are. Now we can select the values for these controls. For the name ID policy format, we'll choose Windows Domain Qualified Name. For the SAML signature key name, cert subject. And for the signature algorithm, RSA SHA 256. This info is also found in our documentation. Now, one of the options up here is Validate Signatures of Requests and Responses. If you'd like to do that, check the box to enable and display the certificate information. The certificate value should pre-populate in the text box, but if it doesn't, again, you can find that information in the metadata XML document and then manually add it here. So next we can scroll down and confirm user attribute mappings. In this example, we'll set up first name, last name, username, and email in the SAML assertion. To transform the attributes, use the following values. I'll start with first name as my attribute and paste in the value, which is given name. By the way, I'm copying all of these claims from our documentation, which you can copy as well. Next, I'll map last name and paste in the value, which is surname. Next is username. The value for this one is SAM account name. We'll also be setting these as attribute claim types when we move over to ADFS. And finally, I'll put in email with the value email address. In step 4, we can assign device user and device admin roles. For the device user role, I'm going to leave the default setting, which means all SSO users are assigned the role. And for the device admin role, I'm going to choose the automatic option, so I can automatically define certain attributes to assign SSO users. I'll describe this as the device admins group. For attribute name, we'll use the group claim that we plan to set in ADFS. The URL for that, again, is found in our documentation. And the attribute value is just the name of the group, so I'll call it device admins. And then I want to be sure to save my settings. Step 5 is quick. We just need to copy the redirect URL at the top of this page to use in the next step, which is where we start our setup in ADFS. You'll need to manually add a / in the word descriptor to the end of this redirect URL when you're asked for it in the ADFS Wizard. If you follow our documentation, you'll be reminded of this in step 6, so we can just copy it here and move on. Step 6. So we're here in ADFS now, where we start by setting up the Relying Party Trust. Start by right-clicking on the Relying Party Trust folder and selecting Add Relying Party Trust, which brings up the wizard. We want to check Claims Aware in the first section, and then click Start. We'll select our data source, so we ensure that we'll get the right data and certificates, and this is where we paste in the copied URL from step 5, and where we need to add the / and the word descriptor to the very end of it. This will be known as the Federation Metadata Address. When you're done, click Next. To specify the display name, we just need to make it unique within ADFS. You could use your tenant name or some variation of that. Add notes if you'd like, and then click Next. Now we'll choose our access control policy. For this example, I'm going to permit everyone. So click Next. Now the relying party trust has been configured. And this is our opportunity to double check everything before we officially add it. We can check this whole set of tabs. When you're satisfied with that, click Next. We'll leave the box checked on this last screen. Now we'll do some claim issuance. Click Add a Rule for each new claim that we want to add. I'll map 3 attributes. The first will be mapping a user ID. So I'll click Add Rule. For this one, I'll select Transform an incoming claim from the drop-down, then click Next. I'll use the following information to configure the claim rule. The name, I'll just add name ID. I'll choose the incoming claim type from the drop-down list and use Windows account name. On the outgoing claim type, name ID again. And then the outgoing name ID format, I will use Windows qualified domain name. I want to pass through all claim values, and then I'll click Finish. So the second rule will be mapping user attributes to the SAML response. This time I'll select Send LDAP attributes as claims as the rule type. For the claim rule name, I'll just hit on everything I plan to include. And now we'll start mapping user attributes to these outgoing claim types. At a minimum, you need to add the following LDAP attributes, there's 4 of them, to the outgoing claim type mappings, but other attributes can be added as needed. So we'll start with the attribute given name, which maps to given name, surname, which maps to surname, the SAM account name, which maps to subject name. Some of these can be tricky to find in the list. And the attribute for email addresses maps to email address. And don't forget to select Active Directory from the Attribute Store dropdown. And I'm actually going to redo this name to represent the order that I put my claims in. When you're done, click OK. Again, we'll click Add Rule. For the third rule, I'll show you mapping a user group. So this time we'll select Send Group Membership as Claim as our rule type and click Next to configure it. In the Claim Rule Name field, I'll call it Device Admins Group. I can browse to locate the object for the Users Group field, and I know I want a location called Device Admins, so I'll check for that. I'll click the Outgoing Claim Type dropdown and select Group. Then enter the outgoing claim value for the selected group, which I'll call Device Admins, just like I did in KACE Cloud. When we're done, click OK. Now we need to flip back to KACE Cloud MDM to enable single sign-on. So we saved our settings in the SSO Wizard the last time we were here. Now we need to scroll up and check Enable Single Sign-On. But before we check, immediately redirect to Identity Provider, which opens up right below it. We need to check the success of our setup process. There's a link nearby to take you to documentation if you'd prefer to pull up static instructions. In our last step, we can test single sign-on. I'll open a new incognito window or a private browser to ensure my login data is clear. Then go to the KACE Cloud portal, but I don't want to log in. Instead, I just want to click the single sign-on button. From here, we'll be directed to a KACE Cloud Microsoft login page, and I'll log in using my identity provider credentials. And we'll know that single sign-on has been successfully set up if we're taken directly to the KACE Cloud MDM users page, which we can see here. And that's how you set up SSO using Active Directory Federation services in KACE Cloud Mobile Device Manager. You can find written documentation in our Help Center, just in case you'd like to reference it during setup. Here, you can see the 7 steps outlined in detail. To review documentation, visit docs.casecloud.com. If you have additional product questions, visit us at support.quest.com. And stay connected by following us on Twitter @QuestExperts.